Have you ever looked at all the gear musicians use and wonder, how does it all work? My name's Dustin, and my family and I are setting out on a quest to inspire both adult and kid musicians to create new sounds together and learn all about what it takes to produce great music. We'd like to invite you along on the journey as we explore the gear professional studios, musicians, and hobbyists use to create their art. We'll take a close-up look at the gear and ask,
What's this button do?
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of What's This Button Do? I'm your host Dustin, and today we are going to be talking about something I find truly fascinating. We're going to be looking at old diodes and transistors inside pedals and how they can shape the sound that you are hearing. And this is coming strictly from some comments on previous videos. I had people who I have played some of like the seeker pedals and played some of my older fuzzes in demos. And I've had people comment and say, hey, that fuzz sounds nothing like my fuzz. I have this one. It looks to be the same model. Why does yours sound so differently? Are you doing post, effects or anything? And one thing I pride myself with this channel is I do not process anything. I record directly into the camera, straight off the board, so there is no post-processing. I want you to hear what I'm hearing in the room, because I think a lot of demo channels out there that do a lot of post-processing, it's really hard to capture the actual sound of the pedal. So after talking to some different people, I sort of went down a rabbit hole and started looking and researching about how fuzzes have changed. Especially, it's really, really prominent with fuzz, but it happens with a lot of different pedals out there. But in this rabbit hole, as I was studying different transistors within fuzzes and different diodes and how there were certain periods of history, and there's lots of this. Josh Scott actually did a really fascinating demo on JHS's website where he was talking about like old Sola sound fuzzes and everything, and how, as certain parts became rarer, they would switch to new parts, and EHX also did this, which led to generations of different big muffs. And that's why you'll have like the triangle big muff and the Rams head big muff. All these different generations, as people bought big muffs, changed. But then as I'm researching all this, over the course of Thanksgiving, Mythos Pedals put out a really cool thing for Black Friday. They took the Mythos Mjolnir, which is Zach's take on a Klon pedal. They had found these old ITT 1N34A diodes, which were supposedly the original diodes that were used in the old school Klon Centaur circuits. And so Zach thought, okay, we're going to do a limited run. They just had a few of them that tested out right. So they said, okay, we're going to do a limited run of these for Thanksgiving and put them out there. So I ordered one. I've always loved the Mjolnir, and Zach, I think, has one of the best ears in the business for Klon circuits. So I thought, okay, this will be a great pedal. And I got it in, and I plugged it in, and all the settings were set almost barely on. And this magical thing happened. My guitar amp just opened up, and there was this chime that I was like, what the heck? Like, everything's barely on. And so I immediately shot it out against all my other Klons. And if you look over on my Instagram at What's This Button Do, you'll see some little videos that I posted here. And I even, like in my original video previewing some of my favorite things for last year, put a little snippet of it in there as I was using it with other pedals, because I was so blown away thinking like, wow, this thing is magic. Holy crud. Zach's done this thing that's just insane. And so I started rambling on about how much I love this and how it got this beautiful sound. And one of my buddies calls me. He's like, Dustin, I don't know what you're talking about. I have one of those. I ordered one, and I'm not hearing the sounds that you're hearing. And so I thought, well, you're crazy. Like, come on over. So he came over here, and he brought his with him. And so I plugged the two in side by side, and I'll be danged if it isn't a completely different sound. Not a bad sound, don't get me wrong, but a completely different effect than what I was experiencing with mine. So reached out to Zach. I got a kick out of it. I was like, man, I'm studying all these old diodes and these old transistors and how they can affect things. And I was like, I am guessing that this is what's happening here is with these 1N34As. Like, you can just get totally different sounds. And he said, yeah, like, no two sound alike. There's just, each one is unique in its own way. And I think the reason I wanted to bring this up, and I promise you we're going to get to the pedal demo in a second. I'm going to let you hear both of these in action. Don't worry. But If you want to skip forward, you can. But I do think there's a point here worth being made, and that is vintage pedals and old pedals with old diodes and old transistors. There is a magic there in some of these diodes that you will find a pedal sometimes that is absolutely mind-blowing. You may play somebody else's pedal, you may find one in a shop. When you find that pedal, I will tell you, do everything you can in that moment to make that happen. Because if you go later and you write down the pedal and you write down the day it was made and everything, and you go find that same pedal made on that same day by the same guy later on Reverb or something, I can almost guarantee you that pedal is not going to sound like the pedal that you played in real life somewhere else. Because these old pedals, some are magical, some, quite frankly, are garbage. There are pieces out there, some of these transistors and these diodes were so cheaply made and weren't tested out to make sure that there was no leakage that over time they've just kind of failed. And you can have these magical fuzzes, and I've had this happen to me, and this is why I've stopped buying fuzz pedals on Reverb and vintage stuff on Reverb for the most part. I only buy it when I can play it in person, or if I can have somebody I trust go play it in person, because I've had so many pedals that I've bought on Reverb that when I got them in, they sounded nothing like the ones that I had played live. They weren't even close, and you just don't know. You have no idea what you're buying online because there's so much variety out there. I think it's why I still believe so much in the music store and being able to go and play stuff before you buy it. That's why I think we have to do the best we can to save all of our local music stores and keep supporting them, because without that ability to go and play stuff, we lose that magic. We lose finding that piece that speaks to us, and we're just praying that whatever we order online happens to be the right thing. And let's face it, as the fees and crud get bigger and bigger on sites like Reverb and stuff, it's making those way more costly now when you get something that isn't that good, because if you got to try and resell it, then you're losing money every single time. And I absolutely can't stand that. So that's my warning to you. And I think there's no better way to demonstrate this than by showing you my two Mythos 1 and 3 4As side by side and let you hear what they sound like. So let's hop over to the demo board real quick, take a listen, and let you hear what you think. All right, for today's video, we are using my Collings i35, and we're going to be running through the bridge pickup. I'll let you hear what that sounds like clean. And then I'm going to show you the first setting that I discovered on this that made me really interested in the little minute differences. Like I said, these are not that massive of a difference of a pedal, but there's just a different sound through them. So I've got the setting set just like I had first done. Gain is almost completely off, trebles at about 9 o'clock, outputs at about 10:30 right in that area. And watch what happens. So if I've got the gold one on, what you're going to hear is, listen to the tubes in the background. I'm running this through tube amp. So when you hear those tubes, you're going to hear the tubes start to get chimey and just glowing just a little bit. Versus you're going to hear just this little extra warmth. Almost imperceptible to the ear. Whereas the silver one, if I turn this on, hear how much louder that is? Versus very, very, very similar, but that the gold just has a warmth to it, and it also is just slightly less noisy. Listen. See the normal noise from the amp. When I turn this on, it goes down just a little bit. You hear it? But the gold, almost dead quiet. And then if I slowly introduce just a little more treble and a little gain, I take the gain right past the light and move the treble to about 1030. Hear that vibration in the tubes? Where if I do the exact same thing here, already more noisy. So if I really dig in with the pickup, I can get it to break up here. And our gain's only at about 8 o'clock maybe, whereas here it's a little tougher. I really dig in. It's really hard to get that to break up. So if I introduce the gain to about 9 o'clock, the treble to noon, and the output to noon, now you start to get that breakout. And you can hear it doing that Klon thing, bringing the mids up a little bit. And now if I do the same thing over here and use these same settings, already hear more noise. Now it's really getting that treble kind of quacky and really pushing those tubes. Or if I'm doing some power chords. Versus. Verses again. You can really hear a noticeable difference. And if I introduce a fuzz pedal in front of all of that, let's stick a fuzz right in front of them and you'll hear the difference here. I'm going to activate my Cornish fuzz. Now this one has a little bit of noise gain in it, so you'll notice the noise level dropped immediately. But I'm going to leave these settings right where they're at and let you hear what this sounds like with a fuzz. Versus the gold. What I love about the gold there, you notice just around the edges of the notes. Let me just pick a note. I'm going to turn down the output just a little bit on both of these so you can kind of hear this. This is kind of a gritty, crackly fuzz. Now watch what happens when I do that with the same with silver. This is normal without it. You can hear it alters the character of that fuzz just a little bit. I actually like the silver, the way that it interacts with the fuzz. The gold smooths it out a little bit. The silver actually brings the treble out a little bit and really makes it shine. But again, subtle differences here, but these are basically the exact same pedal reacting just slightly different, and there is a difference in there. And in the room, I'm hoping the microphones are picking this up. As in the room, it's a noticeable difference, and this is where that magic happens for a player. When you are playing, you will find these little things that just, there's a noise, there's a sound that hits your ear that just sounds right, and you will play better because you're hearing that sound and you're feeling that groove. And there's something when I'm playing clean, there's something about this gold pedal that just I abso-freaking love. Now, I want to do one last thing. I have taken the Mjolnir off the demo board and actually put it into my normal rig where it usually goes. Where I set this at on my board is I actually put it in front of the GC1 and in front of a Warm Audio's Centavo, which is kind of the Warm Audio's take on the Centaur pedal. This is the one where I've got the gain set at about barely on, the treble barely on, and I've got the output set to noon. And I want you to hear what that sounds like when I run it through my normal board and how it brings things to life. So I'm going to play you. This is without the gold Mjolnir on. I'm going to turn it on now. You can hear how it makes those tubes just ring out. And if I bring the treble up, turn it back off, turn it back on. There's just something exciting about that. Super subtle. It's not over the top. It's not crazy, but it's just this really beautiful thing that enriches it and brings out the warmth in a tube amp that I think, especially if you have hotter pickups, like these have got throwbacks in them, so they are a very trebly pickup to start off with, and they lose a lot of the mid-range. So this helps bring some of those mids back and to highlight the frequencies of the treble that you really want to highlight to cut through a mix. That is what the Mjolnir does in spades. And I gotta say, like, I just think they're both fantastic. Like I said, the silver, the way it plays with overdrives and distortions is amazing. And the gold, the way that it plays with your clean sound is just fantastic. So love them both. I think Zach nailed it. But again, subtle differences between the exact same pedal that has the exact same insides. The only difference between these is the two diodes are just different. I mean, they're the same exact diode, but each one is reacting differently, and one's in a gold case and one's in a silver case. But I promise you, the case is not affecting this at all. It is all about those diodes. Just because they're old, they're different. They're going to be, each one's going to have its own personality. So the personality of the silver is it likes to drive a little hotter. The personality of the gold is it's a little smoother, a little mellower, and a little more rounded around that mid-range hump. So it's just really, really interesting to see how two of the exact same pedals can be so close yet sound so different. I hope you captured that here in the video. Okay, I know that was a short video, but do you hear what I'm saying? The gold one at much lower volumes has a much different effect on things, where the silver actually behaves more like what I would expect out of a Klon, quite frankly. The gold one did something totally weird and just had this like little magical thing going on that I usually wouldn't expect out of my Klons, where the silver behaved exactly like I would have expected a Klon to behave, pushing those mids, bringing up that treble, bringing up the volume like it does. So I think there is a magic still in the silver, and I absolutely love it. If I hadn't have played the gold one, I wouldn't have been like so blown away by the silver one being so different. I would have just been like, oh, the silver one sounds great. But once I played that gold one, it was like, oh my gosh, like every setting on this sounds absolutely amazing. So there's just this magic here. And what I love is when you drive the two into each other, you can use each one to blow up the magic of another. But that gold one, there is something about putting another drive pedal in with that and using it to manipulate that drive's tone that just, oh, abso-freaking-lutely beautiful. So hope that came through in the video. Thank you all for bearing with me as I showed these off. I hope that gives you some ideas out there. And I encourage you, I will tell you, like I said, both of these are freaking amazing pedals. If you can get your hands on one of these, I know Zach said he might have a couple more he's going to be selling in the near future, and I've seen a couple pop up on Reverb. They're worth every penny. Like, I would buy these before I would buy a Klon. I think these are amazing. My buddy that had the silver one, he didn't fall in love with it, so I traded him for it. So I got two of these because I felt like both of them are magical in their own way, and I think they can both be used together really, really well. So I would highly encourage you, if you can get your hands on one of these, track them down. But more importantly, anytime you are out there checking out a guitar shop or just driving by your local place, stop by, see if they've got some old vintage gear and try it out, because every now and then you're going to stumble across that magical pedal that just does something that lights up the room, and you will find these treasure troves out there of these old vintage pedals, but you're not going to find them just randomly online. It's going to be really, really hard, and you're going to have to get luck of the draw if you're ordering it online. Go track these down in person and play them and check them out and hear what kind of magic these old diodes can do for you. Well, thank you so much for coming out this week. Next week, I think we're going to be taking a look at the Sibelius Funky Vibe 1968 and 1969 RS models and comparing those two together. Kind of another video kind of like we did today, but we're going to hear the difference between a 68 and a 69 Univibe. So join me back here then. We'll take a listen to those. In the meantime, take care, have a wonderful week, and go Chiefs. We'll see you all soon. Take care.